In this lecture you'll learn about the modal component. Modals are flexible dialog prompts and they come with different options for functionality and styling. Here's an overview of the modal component. First we have a static example, which is just so you can see it displayed on the screen without having to open it up. So we can see that we have a modal title, a close button, some text in the body of the modal, and a footer with an action button and a close button. Now let's see the different variations we can create. Here we have a trigger button that will open up a modal with a header only. So that means a header with its close button and the modal body. We can close it by clicking the close button, clicking outside of the modal, or clicking the escape button. Next up we have a header and footer example. Here we see an action button that doesn't do anything right now, but we have an additional close button that does the same as this close icon up here, so we can close it. We can have a long scrollable content inside of our modal. So here we can see that the page kind of scrolls, or the whole modal scrolls. We can also have a scrollable body, which means that we can see that the header and footer stays the same place, but only the body of the modal scrolls. We can make our modal vertically centered. We can size it. Here the width is small, then medium, large, and extra large. We can make it full screen always, or for specific breakpoints. So for example, let's view below large, and let's resize the browser window. Now we're on the extra large breakpoint, now we're on the large breakpoint, and now when we get below a large breakpoint, right there, it becomes full size or full screen. We can disable the fading animation like so. And finally we can create a static backdrop, which means we cannot close it by clicking outside or using the escape key. You must use the close keys up here, or the close buttons, like so. So this was a quick demonstration of what we're going to create now. We will skip the static example and go straight to the header only example. So first we'll create the trigger button for our modal using a button element with the type button and the classes btn and btn primary. Then to hook this up with the JavaScript, we add the data bs toggle attribute with the value modal. And also we give it the data bs target attribute with the value being an ID selector, modal header. We'll use that later. So then we add the text for our button, open modal. We'll just break the lines here like so. After this button element, we can create the code for our modal. So we add a div tag with the class modal and fade to have the fading animation. The ID will be modal header, which we were referring to up here in the data bs target attribute. Then we add the tab index -1, since it shouldn't be possible to tap inside of this modal when it's being closed. Then we add the area labeled by attribute with the value modal header title. We'll create an element with that ID in a moment. And then we add the area hidden attribute with the value true. Inside of this, we'll add the div tag with the class modal dialog. Inside of this, we add another div tag with the class modal content. Now we can create our header. We'll use a div tag with the class modal header. Inside of this, we add an h5 heading element with the class modal title, and the ID will be modal header title, which we were referring to up here. So this modal is labeled by this h5 heading element with the text modal title, like so. Then inside of this header we'll also add a button element with the type button and the class btn close. So this is the regular close button component. We add the data bs dismiss attribute with the value modal and the area label attribute with the value close. And then we'll close the button tag, but there shouldn't be any conside any content inside of this button tag. After our modal header, we'll create our modal body using a div tag with the class modal body. Now I'll grab a paragraph from the reference section of this page here and paste it in like so. Let's save this, go into the browser, select the screencast tab. We can see that we skipped the static example, and now the next example, header only, we have this trigger button. We click it and we can see the modal appearing. We can click the link to close it. We can use the escape key or click outside of the modal, and we can see it has the fading animation. Next up, let's see how to add a footer to a modal. We'll copy all of this code here inside and paste it in like so. And now we'll update some values, which will be modal header footer and modal header footer title, so it won't conflict with the other code. Now we want to add our modal footer below our modal body using a div tag with the class modal footer. We'll add two buttons. First, a button with the type button and the classes btn and btn primary, and the text action, so this could be any action that you create with JavaScript yourself. And then we have a button with the type button and the classes btn and btn secondary, and the data bs dismiss attribute with the value modal and the text close. So this will also close the modal, and the reason this works is because we're using the data bs dismiss attribute with the value modal, just as we also used that for the close button up here. So we'll save that, go back and refresh, and see that we now have a footer. And the action button doesn't do anything, but the close button dismisses the modal as it should do. Now let's see how a modal behaves when we add long scrollable content to it. We'll go back here and now copy our latest example, paste it in, then we'll update this value header footer to be simply long. So we have modal long and modal long title. Now I want to grab some more paragraphs from the reference section. You can do the same if you want and paste it in right here. So now we have a lot of text inside of a modal body. The rest of the code is the same except for these 4 values up here I changed to avoid conflict. Then we refresh, we open up our new modal, and we can see we can now scroll the whole modal, so we can see that the header and footer will also scroll along with the body when we have a lot of content. Now let's see how we can create a scrollable body only where the header and footer stays in place. So we'll copy this latest example like so and paste it in. Then we'll first update these values here, the modal long value to be modal scrollable body and modal scrollable body title. Alright, we'll keep the long text here. Now we must add a modifier class to the modal dialog. This will be modal dialog scrollable. So let's save this, go back and refresh, and open up our new modal. We can see that we can now scroll inside of the body while the header and footer stays in place. Next up, let's see how we can create a vertically centered modal. As we saw before, the default is placed in the top of the screen, but we can also place it in the middle. So we'll go back here and scroll a bit up and copy the example here with the header and footer. Copy that, scroll back down to the vertically centered example right here. Now we want to update these 4 values. Modal header footer should be changed to modal vertical and modal vertical title. Now to make this vertically centered, we add a modifier class to the modal dialog, which is modal dialog centered. Let's save this, go back and refresh and open up our modal. Now we can see that it's being vertically centered. Next up, we'll take a look at sizing, so how we can change the width of our modal. Paste in the code with the header and footer example again right there, and we'll update this value header footer to be small, so modal small and modal small title. To make this small, we add the modifier class to the modal dialog, modal SM. Then we'll copy this code here and paste it in. Update the modal small values to be modal medium. And then we'll remove this modifier class, since this medium size is the default size. We'll paste in this code again and update the values to be modal large and modal large title. Then we'll edit this modifier class to be modal LG. Then we have the large, or the last size, which is the extra large size. This will be modal extra large and modal extra large title. And we'll edit this modifier class to be modal XL. Now let's save this, go back and refresh. So here we have the small modal, the medium, which is the default modal, the large modal, and the extra large modal. Now let's see how we can create a full screen modal. We'll scroll down here and paste the code in from before and remove the modifier class modal SM, and we'll also update these 4 values here to modal full screen always. Now if you want a modal to be full screen always, we add the modifier class to the modal dialog, modal full screen. But we can also do this responsibly. So let's create these examples before we preview this in the browser. We'll copy and paste this, and then we update these values here to be modal full screen small, or SM actually, we'll use that. And then we must edit this modifier class modal full screen. It should be modal full screen SM down. So now it will be below small sizes, which means only for extra small sizes. Let's copy this code right here, paste it in there. Then we'll update these 4 values to be modal full screen MD, and we'll change this class to be modal full screen MD down. Paste it in again here, update these 4 values to modal full screen LG for large, and edit this class to be modal full screen LG down. Paste it in again, update these 4 values to modal full screen XL, edit the class to be modal full screen XL down. And we have the final example below extra large. Paste the code in again, update these 4 values to modal full screen XXL, and we edit this class to be modal full screen XXL down. Now let's save this, go back and refresh and take a look. So here we have the example with always full screen. So we can see I resize the browser window, it's always full screen. The next one is only full screen below small. So we can see if I decrease the width here, now I'm below small and it goes full screen. And when I reach the small breakpoint, it becomes a regular modal. The next one is below medium. So here you can see I'm on the medium breakpoint. Now I reach the small breakpoint. So below medium, it will become full screen. And we have the below large. We can see right now we're on the large breakpoint. Now we're on the medium, small and extra small. So for large and up. Then we have the full screen for below extra large. Right now we're on the extra large screen size, and now we're on the large. So below extra large. And the final example, which will be below extra large. So now we're on the extra large, and this will become full screen below that. So for extra large breakpoint right there and below. The next example is how to disable the animation. Go back here, and now we'll scroll a bit up to the top and copy the code for the example with the footer and header. Just like so. Copy and scroll all the way back down here to the no animation example. We'll update this value here to be modal no animation and modal no animation title. Then to remove this fading animation, we simply remove this class fade that exists on the parent element with the modal class. So normally we use modal and fade. For this example we only use modal. Let's save, go back and refresh. Now when we open it up and close it, we can see that it appears and disappears instantly without any animation. Finally, let's see how we can create a static backdrop where we cannot close the modal by clicking outside of it or using the escape key. We'll go back here and paste in this code with the header and footer example and update these values to be modal static backdrop and modal static backdrop title. Now we must add two data attributes to our trigger button up here. So after the data BS target attribute, we add the data BS backdrop attribute with the value static, so you cannot click outside of the modal, and the data BS keyboard attribute with the value false, so you cannot use the escape key. We'll save that, go back and refresh, open it up, and now when I click the escape key, we can see this little animation here and it won't close. And when I click outside, the same thing happens. I have to close this using one of the two close buttons here. So this was all about how to use the modal component.